Okay. We should be good to go. Khaleesi.
Good to go.
So I'm still getting used to the whole talking and playing and being on camera thing. So don't judge me if I'm less coherent than I usually am.
Oh, I'm judging.
I'm I'm sure you will. I'm not the greatest multitasker.
I'm kidding. I'm not gonna judge you.
I'm rusty as hell in this game because I haven't played it in so long. It was like the beginning of the semester when I played this entire game. And I've been so busy, but now I'm just gonna dick around, I guess. So tell me why you believe in QAnon. I'm not sure if that's how I should phrase it, or support it. What would you say? Would you say you're a believer or a supporter? What do you call yourself?
Believer. I don't know, supporter sounds
So
good too, though, so I don't know. I
it
don't know.
sounds
What's the
what?
difference? I said that word sounds good too. I don't. What's the difference between a believer and a supporter?
Well, I guess if you're a supporter, that would mean that you believe and, support Trump as a result of it.
Okay.
Whereas if
Okay.
you're a believer and not a supporter, then that would just mean like there's an element of truth to it, certainly, but that you don't necessarily believe that it warrants, having Trump as a president.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So
So
you,
then I would call myself a supporter.
okay. So tell me first why, or in very few words, like tell me which parts of Q you believe, because I know there's a wide, like, variety of exactly what Q believers think. Like I've seen very little coverage of it in mainstream media, which I know is a complaint that like both of us have for a lot of things. Um, but as a result of that, I think that anyone who finds it on their own is going to be more apt to believe it because they see, oh, not everyone believes that like uh, every senator is like a lizard person or something. Like there's certainly a difference in what each.
Wait. So people believe that?
Yeah, I saw this
That's a
interview
that's a
with
Q thing.
yeah, comedian Jim Jeffries, if you're familiar with him.
Uh
He
huh.
interviewed he interviewed four Q believers or supporters, and some of them were saying that like the Clintons were lizard people and things equally absurd. Something to do with
Okay.
JFK Jr. They
Yeah.
just pulled in a
There's
lot
a
of
lot.
yeah, they just pulled in a lot of different conspiracy theories. So it just kind of seemed like a smorgasbord of like, oh, what are some interesting things that I can talk about?
Yeah. No.
Khaleesi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you not hear me? Oh, okay. I see. I see
I can hear
your
you.
message. But
I think it should be totally fine now. I hear no
okay.
echo.
I was about to say I
I
have
just
on my. I found my Apple headphones, so I don't know why it would be those.
I wonder who the one viewer remaining is now, because we lost everyone after that garbage fire.
That happens. Oh,
Yeah.
so hard.
Well, I'll figure it out eventually, and then hopefully I won't have these problems in the future.
I mean, I'll talk about it any day. I don't care.
Yeah,
Honestly,
I mean, there's
like,
definitely plenty to talk about with it. So.
right. Anytime anybody is ever like interested in hearing what I got to say, I can just go on and on and on and on for days about it, to the point where like anybody else who's around who didn't really ask me they're like, okay, can y'all shut up talking about it now? Because I just end up getting on their nerves going on about it.
So where did we leave off before I had to stop again?
Oh, what I was saying was anybody that I know who
No,
follows Q.
before that, before I had to. Oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, anybody I know who follows Q, and by follows I mean like keeps up with posts and stuff like that.
Hmm.
They, I've never heard anybody ever say anything about some lizard people on me that I know that does. Um, a lot of it, you kind of have to be you have to be somewhat of a believer. Well, not somewhat. You have to be a believer in God and stuff, because a lot of it has to do with this being the big one. You know, like it's coming to be like the second coming and stuff like that is what a lot
Okay.
of it is
Yeah,
about.
I've noticed that it's very like religiously focused.
Yeah.
But I had never seen anything explicitly talking about like the rapture, and it sounds like that's what you're suggesting, right?
Yeah. So, but if you look at any posts made, none of it is real. You have to decode every message. Like none of it is straight up saying this is what I'm trying to say. You have somebody comes behind whatever Q posts, somebody will come behind and be like, he meant that, or not really he, because we don't know who it is, who is Q or
Yeah.
whatever. What they meant was this right here, and this little part means this right here. You know what I mean? That's what
Yeah.
the Anons do. They come behind Q and try to decode every message. So
And
none of it.
and Q will even say things like learn our comms
Exactly. Right.
or
Yeah.
like pay
They
attention
say that
to
a lot.
missing letters in tweets and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. They'll say stuff like, keep these people in mind, and then we'll like list people, and or remember this date, or pay attention to this, pay attention to that, and then you have to like tune in and see. Okay, so that is what I was getting to about like why I believe in Q and follow Q, is because I have witnessed Q being like, focus on this date, um, and what is said at this point in time, and it'll be like it'll say a date, and it'll be like weeks before that date, and then on that date, Trump will do a rally, and how Q is like pay attention to what is said at this time, at 3 minutes in, or something like that. So Trump will do a rally on that date, and then 3 minutes into his speech, he'll say something, and it'll be like, Q was told you to pay attention to what he's saying right here, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Does that make
Yeah.
sense? I'm trying not to be
But
too straightforward.
do you have a specific example you want to talk about, or because I mean, in general, like anyone could say, pay attention to what Trump says at 2 minutes and 33 seconds. And
Right.
then
Okay. So
anyone out of the probably millions of people who are following it, like, of course, someone's going to come up with something that ties a few things together and looks
yeah.
convincing.
Right. Okay. So, for example, Q. I'm trying to think of one that I specifically see that's not too. I don't know what the
There
word is that I'm
was,
looking for. Um, too much like, oh, that's fucking conspiracy. Oh, pardon my language. For instance, Q once made a post about how everything was coming to light with like the sex trafficking rings and stuff like that, Pizzagate, that kind of stuff. And Q made a post saying they will deny their citizenship. They will commit suicide. They will do this. They will do that to avoid exposure, I think is the word that was used. And a couple, I think it was like maybe a month later to the day, John McCain died. And there was also Obama at one point claimed Kenyan citizenship, like that kind of stuff, if that makes sense. And Q made that post, and it was like a month later that all the rest of this stuff started happening. Does that make sense?
By stuff started happening, you mean
Yeah,
McCain
like
dying?
McCain dying.
Or
right.
was there something about McCain's death or is there something about McCain that makes people convinced that that's who Q is talking about? Or anything that suggests that McCain's death was a suicide?
It was just
and like nothing came to light about it at that point in time, right? If you're going to say
if I'm
that people would kill themselves because they were exposed for being part of a child trafficking ring, then wouldn't that happen after there was media coverage or an arrest? And there was neither of those things.
No, yeah, exactly. No, see, what is going on, well, I'm not going to say this is what is happening, but what I believe, what most people believe, is all of this investigating and exposure and stuff like that is being hidden right now, so that when it does finally go public, it's like bam, right in your face. Like they're arresting the Clintons, they're arresting people and stuff like that, but they have to get more. They don't want to alert the people because they don't want people to freak out. You know what I mean? They don't want to know. They don't want to know that they've been lied to for so long. They don't want to know that this is going on and that's going on. They don't want to know that. So they have to do it real slick like. Is what
who is supposedly they that you're referring to?
Like the head people in our military, Trump, Trump's team.
They don't want to let us know that John McCain is part of a child trafficking ring.
Saying he was. I'm just saying it was coincidental that all of a sudden, if I remember correctly, I think it was cancer maybe that he had died from, but nobody was ever told. Nobody ever knew that he even had cancer at all, and then all of a sudden he died from it. It was just like a coincidental type of thing.
Are you sure it wasn't knowledge to anyone that McCain had cancer?
It was not public knowledge. So, I mean, it is still possible that it was not public knowledge, but he did have cancer. He just didn't tell nobody, type of thing. That's also a possibility. It just depends on what you believe. And people like me who believe one thing, we are not the type that's like shoving it down everybody else's throats. Like, you have to believe this. That's why I'm always like, it's coincidental. It could have been this. It could have been this. You know what I mean? It just seems coincidental, which is why Q all the time is saying how many coincidences until it's mathematically impossible. It's just all of these coincidences keep happening.
But one of the problems with that is that, like, it's a lot of small coincidences to me. Like, I don't think it was that unlikely that a politician would die in the next, few weeks or months after a Q post. If it was something much larger, like someone who had a lot of like direct ties to Jeffrey Epstein, maybe something that's like more concrete, then I think that could be established as, that's some shady shit right there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying for sure. I'm
Like a lot of
so
the stuff.
I'm looking into more examples to give because it's just so much.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot. And
There's also been a few times where Trump will give a speech, and in his speech he'll slip in, like, just randomly he'll say Q, or he'll say what is it, 17 is Q's the 17th letter of the alphabet, I believe. He'll say something about that number, or just little things like that to make you think, oh, okay, or somebody will be standing in the crowd at his rally with a poster that says Q on it,
and
and
he'll
he'll
point to them.
specifically point.
Yeah.
Stuff like that is another
I
reason
think
to me.
I think Trump is definitely encouraging it. He's not ignoring it for sure. And I think that he knows that a great deal of his support at this point is coming from Q supporters, Q believers. And I mean, it's not unreasonable to me to suspect that he would take advantage of that, right? I mean, maybe he would throw Q people a bone if he knew it was helping him retain office.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Especially with
there's all
like really
different kinds
low.
of possibilities.
Yeah. So are you familiar with the concept of Occam's razor?
I don't think I am familiar with that. No.
It's a philosophical concept that's like often brought up in debates between skeptics, and it just means that the simpler explanation is often the most correct one, or the more correct one. And to me, it seems more likely and requires less of a lot of jumping around that Trump would point to the same person with a Q shirt over and over because he knows it's getting him support than because there's an international conspiracy involving, every department, and no one is letting slip all these things. Like, even in Trump's inner circle, like, people that are close to him let things slip all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yet, like, wouldn't we hear, oh, there's an investigation into and I mean, I know you're saying that they're afraid of like what the public, how the public would react. I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Yeah, so I just think that it's more likely that, Trump knows he's getting some good PR from Q and would throw Q supporters a bone than it is that all these people happen to be involved in the same thing. And I think there are some elements of truth to it. Like, I definitely think that the Clintons, knew about Jeffrey Epstein just like Trump did, and a lot of other people in the same circles. Because that's what rich people do, right? They just get away with whatever they want to do.
Right.
But
see, like, to me, like, I have always, like, ever since I first found out about Q back in 2016, and started learning about all of this stuff, I have always gone back and forth with myself on if, whether or not Trump is actually, like, helping with the whole Q thing, or if he's actually in on the deep state shit. I've always gone back and forth on that. I don't I mean, I've finally gotten to the point where I, I do think that he and Q are working together. But I could be wrong. I could believe something and be completely wrong. Biden being elected could be the greatest thing that could have happened to us. It's a good thing. Trump
I
is
highly doubt
not
that.
in office. Or we could have really just fucked ourselves by electing Biden into office, and shit's about to really hit the fan here in this country now. It could go either way. For me, I mean, I'm not gonna go to a riot and burn down my fucking city because I didn't get my way. I'm not gonna throw a fucking hissy fit about it. And there's a lot of Trump supporters and Q believers that are the same way as me. We're not just gonna throw our fucking hissy fit. Now, there are a few people out there who are losing their minds.
I think it's more than a
most
few.
part, right? But for the most part, like where I'm from, at least, we're not over here throwing a hissy fit and burning down our fucking cities and shit like that because Trump didn't get elected. But that also goes into a whole different thing when it comes to the election. That's a whole different topic to talk about right there. So, anyways, the point is, even though I believe certain things, I'm not saying 100% it's true. It's true. This is fact. It's just what I believe. And I'm not going to, force it down anybody else's throats. I highly encourage everyone to do their own research into this kind of
I'm
stuff
not
and draw
trying to
their own
force you to talk
conclusions
about it.
on stuff.
I'm just
No. I
inviting
mean,
you
I
to
don't mind.
explain because
Right. I don't mind talking about it at all. But you always says, and I also believe that it is very important for people to draw their own conclusions on things because an independent mind cannot be controlled. So,
of
if
course,
you think
but I
if you
think
think
that
yourself, it's harder for you to be brainwashed by the media and such.
for sure.
So I just wanted
But
to kind of make that clear.
yeah, extraordinary claims though require extraordinary evidence, right? So I'm just curious to hear like what has led people to believe these claims that I think are very significant if they were true, right?
Um, uh, it's kind of difficult for me to really talk about because it's really like I said, it all comes down to your religious beliefs, and there are
Well, even
people.
if you're not religious, you're gonna care about an international like child trafficking ring, right?
Right.
I'm an atheist, and like this is something obviously I would condone the lock people up forever if they're anywhere involved with that.
But see, there's been some proof. I'm trying to think of the right words to say. There's been some proof put out there. That's it's it used to be easy to find, but nowadays it's harder to because the internet has started like blocking. They take videos down.
Yeah,
All that stuff. So it's harder to find that evidence now, but um, that all of it is like the kids that are being in a part of this, trafficking ring is not just for pedophilic purposes. It's for like satanic rituals and stuff like that as well.
yeah, I'm
They
familiar with that, but for the
right.
purposes of this conversation, I care more about like
I'm getting to that.
proving
I'm getting
the
to, yeah, I'm getting,
legitimacy of things.
right. That's what
Yeah,
I'm getting to that. I'm saying there's been proof put out there, videos, interviews with kids who are part of it, put out there that show what they do with these kids, or like the kids interviews, they're telling them what they're doing with the kids, stuff like that. And I'm talking about like little kids, like 6, 7, 8 years old, having an
yeah.
interview
I
with
mean, I think
somebody.
it's awful any way that it is true, right?
Right.
Um, yeah. So
And to
like, I'm
me,
just
it's
trying.
just hard. It's hard to, like, when you're watching the interview, and this child is telling you very, very specific on things, like, this is where they do sex to us, this is where there's a chapel, and this is where they keep their this specific bowl, this is where they keep this specific candle, all this stuff. And the kids are so young, but it's hard for me to believe that they were trained to tell these stories, you know what I mean? They had to
Yeah,
have lived
I
it.
don't doubt
So
that.
to hear, and but I mean, of course, it's not, they don't give like Hillary Clinton's name or like anything like that. I just, on Epstein's Island, I believe, was a huge part of the ring, right? And if you look on the list of people, the guests on that island, Bill Clinton's name is on there, and Barack Obama's name is on there, and there's a bunch of different
Yeah,
politicians' names on there. And that's just, to
and like I
me,
mentioned, I do believe that the Clintons were at least aware of some of the awful things that were going on with Epstein and
yes.
his whole circle.
Right,
Um,
right. And I think they actually, me personally, I think they participated. Now, at one point, there was a, a picture, I think it was a picture, um, like a screenshot of security cameras. So, when you have like a ton of security cameras and it all shows up on the same screen, it's all the different cameras. So, that's small pictures of all the different cameras, what's going on. You know what I'm talking about?
yeah, but
Okay.
do you know
Yeah,
what
so
I'm
there was a
saying? Like, I
screenshot.
understand that the Clintons and the like probably are involved in these things, but I'm trying to figure out, the legitimacy of whether or not Trump is actually a deep or going against the deep state and trying to take them down, right? That's what I'm curious to see if there's.
There's like the evidence and proof of Trump trying to take them out.
I mean,
It's just,
I'm aware that he went after the Clintons for the purposes of his campaign, but as far as the Q conspiracy theory goes, or theory goes, um, like that's what I'm looking to explore. And I just haven't
um,
seen anything that I have found convincing so far. I mean, obviously, I haven't looked through every available proof yet because there are so many, and I'm just going through and uh, debunking them or analyzing them one at a time.
mhm.
Um, but I mean, I've looked at a decent number of them, and the things that Q supporters will just type out and explain online. And I haven't found any of it like very credible or convincing. Like if there was something that was like,
I'm really trying to understand your question.
um, just, I mean, I think you've been trying to do that, um, and maybe you wanted to have like more prepared. I'm not sure. Like I'm just looking for, why do you believe that Trump is, the hero that Q says he is? And do we know that for sure, you know, or maybe not for sure, but even like if there's a high likelihood that Q is, a good actor, like acting in good faith and trying to, help rid the world of this trafficking ring.
And that's always a possibility. It all comes down to belief. I'm currently trying to find
Yeah, I understand that it's
more
a
credible
possibility. I'm just
stuff.
trying to find,
Why I believe.
convincing. Yeah. Do you just have like a feeling about it? Like just
It's.
we all
I mean,
know politicians suck ass and we all hate them, but like I think it's I take uh theories and accusations like one thing at a time, right?
yeah.
Like I mean I did the same thing with the insinuation that Trump was like involved with like Russian collusion and
Right.
I mean
Which
that's
all.
obviously bullshit.
Right. I was about to say which all came. That's another thing why I lean more towards the belief of. See,
And
to
it's all about
me,
the
to
framing
me,
too. Like
to me, this to me this is what happened. Q to me. Now, this is all my belief. I believe that Q is not just one person, it is a group of people. And I think it's like higher ups in the military, okay, who know about all of the shit, all the corruption, all the shit going on in the deep state, right? And I
mhm.
think they all got together and came up with this idea um, to to finally put an end to it. And they needed to choose somebody um, to fill the presidency who wouldn't buy into all this shit. So they chose Trump because he already had, he's a fucking billionaire. I mean, he has all of this money. So he couldn't be bought out. And since he is president, he he's told everything. He knows absolutely everything that is going on. And they tried to buy him out and he said no, he's not gonna follow along with what the fuck's going on. And when he did that, they decided
Can we take this
they
like one
freaked.
thing at a time? Like why like do you have anything that's leading you to be sure that this is something that happened? Or is it just, a possible explanation?
I mean, a possible explanation, I guess, but I'm getting to these certain things have happened to make me lean more to the. Yeah, I believe this is what happened. So I think that he couldn't be bought out. So they freaked out. They got scared and decided to do whatever they could to get him out of there. So they launched this investigation of Russian collusion and all this other shit. They turn on their media assets that we all need to hate. If you look back, no other president has ever been talked so poorly about ever since being elected, um, ever. When George
Right.
Bush was president, the Dixie Chicks made a comment about um, their they hate that they're from the same state that the president was from, right? And it ruined their
Sure.
entire career. Everybody hated them from then on. Nobody has ever been talked so poorly about. And the media just from day one has been shoving down everybody's throats.
But you know what my response
Trump's
to that
bad.
is,
Trump's
right?
doing this. What's that?
So, I mean, technically it's multi-part, but like the mainstream media is corporate and they're in favor of, just maintaining the status quo for a variety of reasons. Same reason why they'll shit on Bernie Sanders all day long. Because of course they're going to be moderate. They want things to remain the same as much as possible and not rock the boat because they're owned and produced by rich people. Um, and so Trump comes along, and he's not even a politician. He's not very stable seeming. I mean, that's why the media largely didn't even treat him as a serious candidate, right? Because,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he just kind of seems like a clown. I mean, he's an actor. Um, so what was the other part?
But when it comes to that, like, I mean, Ronald Reagan was an actor too. He wasn't a politician.
Right. So my point was that I mean, I don't think that Trump is getting negative coverage because he's anti anti pedophile, anti child eaters or something. I think that it's because he's god awful. And I mean, every time a politician says something, blatantly awful like that, and if they're against the status quo, then the media is going to attack them. I mean, Bernie gets attacked for things like having a private jet to fly around the country and campaign. And I mean, if there are sound bites of Trump saying things that, whether or not they're even as awful as people would suggest out of context, like just the fact that they sound awful is enough for corporate media to, go after someone who's a wild card.
I get that.
So I think it's a more likely suggestion that outside of, Republicans who looked at Trump and said, "Oh, that guy is, a successful businessman. He,
He's
and I think that's the reason why a lot of people
I
voted
think
for
he would
him
win
is
the election.
because I mean, even a lot of my family members voted for him, and they said that it was because he wasn't bought out by other corporatists like every other politician is,
Right?
except for maybe like a few here and there. But I mean, once he started campaigning, and since he's been in office, he's behaved more or less like the average Republican. Other than a few, or I mean, frequent comments that make him, go against respectability politics because the media thinks that we don't care about substance and all we care about is, the appearance that someone gives off. So, like, he's just a perfect storm for things to go after and hate, right?
Perfect storm. I like how you use that term, but go ahead, continue.
I mean, between 26 sexual assault accusations against him, all the stuff that the girls who did the Miss Universe pageants, or is it Miss America, whichever one, saying that he'd like go peep on them in the dressing rooms and touch them without their consent. Like, I just think that anyone who, like, it's easy to see why everyone hates him from the get-go, right?
No, I totally agree. And I've said that multiple times. I definitely can see why he is hated. I don't like Trump as a person at all. I don't. I definitely think he's not politically correct. He says some stupid shit. He does some stupid shit. I know all of this. I am more towards like the shit that he has done for the country compared to every other president we've had. Yeah, he's said and done dumber shit,
Yeah,
but
and I
he's
mean
also
that's a different
done more
conversation.
for.
I'm happy to have, but like right now I'm still wanting to talk about the QAnon stuff in
Right.
one conversation and find out what is leading you to your religious fervor with this QAnon belief.
I, I mean, it really is just, it's mostly like a feeling. Also, I mean, obviously, I am a believer. I'm a Christian. I am a believer in God, and I have read the book of Revelations, and I just can see the stuff unfolding in front of me that is told in the book. So that is
Are you
makes me
familiar?
more lean towards, like, I really just want, I, I just feel it. I have a feeling. That's why it's more of a more. It's more, you have to believe. You know what I mean? To me, you have to
Yeah,
believe. You have
and
to have that feeling,
yeah, and
and
I
that's
mean
why I
that's what
feel a
I
certain way for sure.
suspect. But when we're talking about making logical arguments, that's the opposite of how you're supposed to construct your belief system, right? You're supposed to start with evidence and then work your way towards this evidence is leading me to believe this, um, empirical evidence or even deduction.
Well, that's
But by working backwards, like it's just confirmation bias that's
but what I'm
making you sure in a belief.
but what I'm saying is, like, in the book, it names specific events happening right before the second coming, right? And those specific events have been happening in the world. The fires, the bugs, the I mean, we're in a
Yeah, and
pandemic right now.
for decades we've always had pastors and stuff crop up and say, "Oh, doomsday is on this day," and there are always people that go stockpile, and then
Well,
the
we
date rolls
never,
around and nothing
right.
happens.
Right. We never.
And
I mean, and we never. It's never
back
told
when,
when specifically it'll happen. And I think that most of the time, from anybody who I am around or speak to about the subject, we don't know even that it's specifically going to happen like on this date or anything like that. We just
yeah, and
know that
I was
it's coming soon, type of thing.
sure. So it's been a long time since I was religious. I was raised in a Christian household, um, and eventually worked my way out of it. But I guess we can say that for another day. But
Mm-hmm.
uh, I know that every time there were one of those things unfolding where someone was saying, "Oh, we're in the end of days," um, uh, pastors at multiple churches I went to would always cite the same Bible verse. I don't remember the exact verse, but it says that like anyone who claims to know when the second coming is or have like information about it is a false prophet.
Mm-hmm.
So even just by like the sheer fact that Q is supposedly saying that we're in the end of days, I mean, shouldn't that if you're like basing it religiously tell you that it's not true?
I mean, I would. I can definitely see where you're coming from. I'm trying to put my thoughts into words. Um,
Yeah, and we can talk more another day about this. I know there's a lot to talk about.
yeah, for sure. Um, but I mean, it's. I could definitely next time have fuck like shit prepared, and not be like trying to scroll in my phone for stuff as I'm trying to think and talk at the same time because I'm all scatterbrained right now.
It's all good. I
I've
mean, we
done
can.
already. Okay. So you were saying um, about the false prophet. That's where we're at. Okay. Um, and then Q saying, hmm, "Oh shit." Um, I don't see it like that because I think they're just kind of saying what we all feel.
Why would he? I mean, if someone is claiming to like bringing you information that's important, why would they just tell you what people are thinking? Why does that like that doesn't help you establish
I don't,
credibility? That's not
but I don't,
like
but
useful to
that's,
people.
but I don't see what him saying or them saying it we're in the end of days has to do with the information that they bring us because they do put out information and stuff like that. It's not
Yeah,
just
it was just
about
something you brought
what
up,
people
right?
think, right? But what I'm saying is it's not only they're not only saying what people are thinking. um
Yeah,
so
I'm
I
not saying that's all they're saying, but as far as like um you know, if they're a false prophet, then surely like that would tell you. And I mean, I'm not saying they necessarily are. I'm just telling you what uh, biblical text says, because you said that it has a lot to do with your religion for you, and why you think that they're credible.
Well, see, let me also, I guess, point out that I say I'm religious, but I mean I'm a believer in God, and I have accepted Him as my Savior. But I am not
You're not as like strict
super right.
follower. Yeah,
I don't believe in organized religion at all. I think that a lot of priests and preachers and stuff like that are no good. Uh, they're not good people. They shouldn't even be, you know, doing what they're doing. That's why I don't believe in the organized religion.
right. So, are you
I
saying
have
that?
not read every single word of the Bible. I've not read every single book at all. I just kind of just throwing that out there. I'm not like super familiar with scriptures and
So
stuff like that.
are you saying you're not necessarily a fundamentalist? So even if it does say that, like that doesn't necessarily ring true for you?
Um, I'm not saying that.
I'm only talking about the
I'm
religious angle because you said that's like a large part of the credibility for you.
right,
But we
right.
can talk about it from other standpoints if you'd rather.
I was just um I was just saying, what I was trying to say is you mentioned something about, you know, the false prophet or whatever, but I was not familiar with that. Um, what's the word I'm looking for? That that line of the Bible. I don't know what the
Mm-hmm.
correct word is. Until you literally just said it. You literally just told me it's written in there. I did not know that. So it kind of caught me off guard, and I'm not really sure how to answer the question. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, we
there's
can
the
talk
answer
about
to
that
that question.
another time, or not at all. I mean, I'm not even a believer, so like I don't really care personally what the Bible says about one thing or another. But
Right.
um, like as far as credibility goes for you, that's why I was talking about it. Um, but if there's something else that like establishes credibility for you, is it just between, as you and other Q supporters call it, like a great many coincidences, or is there something else that you're like, gavel on the podium, it's definitely true? Sorry, I might have said that kind of convoluted.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying not to talk so much about. I'm trying not to reference the election at all. So, but that's like a huge deal right now. So I'm trying to dig deeper into my mind on past stuff. So it's just taking me a second to think.
Sure. I mean, as far as the election goes and like establishing credibility with Q, I mean, he said, you can't stop it. It's going to be a landslide for Trump, right? And I mean, I think that that's obviously not what happened. But I mean, I guess you would probably argue that the election is fraudulent.
Extremely.
And we can discuss that if you want. But
oh, I just that is I think there is so much evidence of fraud in the election that I think it needs to be completely redone. You know what I mean? There needs to be a whole new vote.
I'm sure you would like that.
Again. I mean, it's just there was more people who voted in certain counties than who actually lived in certain counties and stuff like that. I've talked to plenty of people who you can look your vote up, online, and there's been plenty of people who have said that they've seen their dead relatives on there. I talked to
and you know why that is, right? It's because they say, "Oh, John Smith, that's my cousin. He's been dead for 20 years." And it's like, that's a common name. Of course, there's going to be someone else named John Smith. And all of these have been looked at over and over in court and in press conferences. We've seen the evidence that Rudy Giuliani and like Melissa Corone and others have presented, never under oath, other than the affidavits. And he's now lost in court 50 times. He has one win for an insignificant number of votes. And this is by judges appointed by Trump. Federalist Society far-right judges have looked at the evidence that they presented in court and laughed them out of court. And as far as like the voting numbers goes, that's also, I mean, obviously we had record turnout, and I think that's because for the last 4 years, the country's been extremely polarized either way. Either you buy into what Trump is saying or you hate Trump, right?
Right.
So the numbers that are being used to compare the number of voters and the number of registered voters, it's using registration numbers from 2018. In the last 2 years, so many people have registered because of all the shit that's been going on that now we have these massive numbers. And that's why in certain counties and stuff, there's been a greater turnout now than there were registered voters 2 years ago. Does that make sense?
And that is definitely
and that's exactly why
one way to look at it.
And that's exactly why it's been thrown out of court by Trump's appointed hundreds of federal court judges with the help of Mitch McConnell in the last 4 years. And I mean, even the Supreme Court case, you know, all three of the Supreme Court justices appointed by Trump smacked him down. You know, smacked down the appeal made by Texas. So, I mean, even considering the fact that all of this evidence has been presented in front of, you know, I mean, it's all out there. We can all look at it, but it's also been brought in court in front of dozens of federal judges, the Supreme Court, you know, every legal expert other than, you know, Rudy Giuliani is saying that it's, you know, all bullshit. And Trump has been telling us for years that he would only honor the election results if he won. He said it over and over.
No, yeah, definitely. I can see definitely where you're coming from, for sure, on that. But like,
and then there's also
all of that is just like one thing. There's just been multiple things that is just like statistically impossible. There's just no way. Like the 187,000 random votes for Biden at you know, nobody but Biden. It's just 100% nobody voted for Joe Jorgensen. I mean, there was thousands of people who fucking voted for Kanye West in Tennessee.
Remember you brought that up at the time in the Discord chat, and I addressed it. I linked you to where they corrected it within 20 minutes. I mean, if they were trying to rig an election, why would they make it so
obvious? Right. No, and I get that. But like, there was also times when you could see it on the TV where votes would disappear from, and I'm not saying it was only Trump and Biden. It was all throughout the election, like all of the different senators and all of that stuff that people were also voting for. Votes would disappear, and then for one candidate, and then the same amount of votes that disappeared, it would go up on the other candidate. And they came forward at one point and said that they found a glitch, and they fixed it in that one county. But there's like all kinds of different counties that use that same program for their voting system. So why wasn't it checked everywhere else to see if that glitch happened everywhere else as well? You know, like little things like that. There's been multiple whistleblowers that work for the post office who said that they were being told to predate certain votes so that they could get counted for and things like that. Just all kinds of different stuff. There's 17 states right now that are in a lawsuit about the election, and just it's all kinds of stuff going on. I think that it was rigged on both sides. Honestly, I think it was rigged on both sides, and I think that it just needs to be all redone. Not because I highly believe that Trump won the election, but I just think that it was all so rigged that that's not fair to the American people at all. Like, at all. Or the votes should be what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word I'm looking for.
Counted fair.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the intelligent word for it.
So I mean,
the point is, I want everybody's want the real votes counted and the fake votes thrown out. Whether they were for Trump or Biden, I don't care. The fake ones, the
Right,
ones that
and I
shouldn't
agree.
be there, should be thrown out. And that's why I think that it should all be redone, because that's not what America stands for.
So, I mean,
Whether or not Trump actually won, I'm not saying he did. I'm just saying that if Biden is really who the American people want, then yeah, he should be in office. If Trump is really who the American people want, yeah, he should be in office. I just think
right,
it
and
needs
I
to be
agree.
fair. That's why I think the whole thing needs to be redone.
Yeah, and again, like what I said earlier about extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, like there's very weak evidence, if evidence at all, especially for like a national conspiracy, like, or international conspiracy, like Trump has been suggesting. And like we can't stall a major function of the government, especially, well, I mean, just any major function of the government, over something that is improbable that happened at all, and that it's been looked at in court. It's gone through all the proper checks already. The election has been certified in every state. Biden has the same number of electoral votes as what was projected. And that Trump's own federal judges who, you know, want to help him out even had to admit themselves, hey, there's nothing here. And I agree
but there's been a lot of instances where the votes aren't legally certified, though, is another thing.
What do you mean by that?
That they're finding names of illegal citizens and stuff like that shouldn't have voted, and they're still counting those votes.
Well, you know, every state has its own election laws, and that they have their own procedures that they follow. And that's been known for the entire term of Trump's presidency. And if there was any kind of problem with it, why wouldn't there be some kind of process to try to handle it before then? There wasn't, right? I mean, Trump even said that the election in 2016 was rigged, or that if he lost, that it was rigged, and that didn't happen. He became president, and like if there were major issues that he was so sure about, he had plenty of time to try to do something about it. But he raised no fuss other than saying that mail-in voting was fraudulent. And then try to go after and control the post office, which he succeeded at. So you see what I'm saying? Like I haven't heard anything that leads me to believe that it's warranted that we redo an entire national election and have different people voting, you know?
Mm-hmm. Wait, repeat what you just said?
Like, I haven't seen anything that warrants a revote. Like, there's a reason why we have this process exactly every 4 years. It's because that we're supposed to put limitations on the power of any office. So in order to stretch things out at all, I mean, Trump, either way, on January 20th, or is it 23rd, he would no longer be president. Nancy Pelosi would actually take over, per the 22nd Amendment.
Hold on. I wasn't listening. I wasn't paying close enough attention to what you were saying just now. So, I do that
What
sometimes. I just
what did
completely
you?
blank.
I was
The
saying that
past like sentence or two that you said, repeat what you were saying.
right. I'm saying that there's a reason why we have this process every 4 years to put, checks on the power of the office of the president.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to keep that process going any longer and like putting off electing a new president, per the 22nd Amendment, the
So
president or the
I'm
Speaker of the
sorry.
House.
Somebody just started calling me in the middle of you freaking talking.
Okay.
And we do it every 4 years.
Right. And I'm saying that it's a large, important, and expensive even process if you want to do a total re-election. Every election cycle, there is some amount of fraud. There's going to be, one person who tries to vote twice or something. I think the rate is like 0.1% or something, or 0.01%. A ridiculously low number, either way. But we don't do a total. Oh, she said, "Hold on."
You were saying that there's a reason that we do
Right.
this every 4 years.
Yeah, like it's not an office that you're supposed to stay in if people don't vote you to be in it.
Right.
So, like, I'm just saying, like, stalling this process is not something that benefits anyone. Even if you want Trump as president, per the 22nd Amendment, the Speaker of the House would take over, which is Nancy Pelosi. She would be acting president until a new election was conducted. That's just constitutional law. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just saying that, it's a big claim, and you'd have to show, one, that, election or voter fraud happened, and two, you would have to show that it's on a large enough scale to potentially change the results of the election. And I don't think, certainly there were certain people who, tried to vote twice or something. Trump, particularly in North Carolina, said multiple times that his supporters should vote twice to test the system, like the anti, voter fraud system. But I don't think that happened on a significant scale for either party. It never does. There's always, one out of 100,000 people, but that would not change the result of any election.
Yeah. So what you're saying is,
especially since it's randomized.
Yeah, there's fraud
for the most part.
But even though there was fraud, it wouldn't change the outcome of the election at all, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
right?
Essentially, if you have an election where, how many total would that be? 153 million people voted. 154 million people voted, and say even it was like 10,000 people got away with voting illegally they all voted twice, and they're all going to get caught and go to jail for 5 years, go to prison for 5 years. Like, does that warrant a new election?
I think that any fraud warrants a new election, because that is not what America stands for. It's
But you
wrong.
understand, then we would have no
there
elections,
should be
right?
there should be no fraudulent activity in what the American people want at all.
Right.
None.
And that's why we have precaution after precaution to reduce it as much as possible. Like, it's a felony to commit voter fraud. And say you even somehow got away with doing it 20 times. Like 20 extra votes in your little local district's election is, one, not going to affect your county's election, and it's sure as hell not going to affect the presidential election results, which is why no one does it. I mean, there's the occasional like random instance, but that's like saying you shouldn't go outside because you could get struck by lightning on a clear day or something.
Right. But to me, it's just it's a little fishy for Trump to be leading in a state and it be 99% complete. The vote, the counts is 99% complete, and then they don't call the election for that state
Do you
for a very
understand
long
how
time, and then all of the sudden you start seeing Biden's votes go up suddenly, and then it switches, the state
But do you know why
switches
that is?
all of a sudden, and then they call it. Like, that's just crazy to me.
So like I was saying
That it's
before,
done like that.
every election or every state has its own election laws. And so
Right.
The pundits that I was watching and listening to their analysis, they knew, okay, in North Carolina, by this time, they will have all of their already received mail-in ballots counted in the system, and then it's pretty much done. And then there are other states where it's like, okay, they already counted them, and now it's just like a few they're trickling in. And the percent reporting is just a rough estimation. That's why there are states that will say 99% from election night and still not get called for a long, long time, because they have no idea how many mail-in ballots are actually going to be counted, right?
Right.
So that's why I don't think that's even
so the
a little bit suspicious.
percentage is just like a guesstimate, is what you're saying.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And I mean, it varies by state. Like, they have different ways for like calculating it, and so does every media outlet. Most people were following the Associated Press, like, because Google was purveying those results. So I'm assuming those are what you're talking about. Just like there were some outlets that didn't call Arizona for a week and a half after the election. Like, I mean, it doesn't matter what the media says, because it's all just a guess. And I mean, they're all going to have their own biases, which is why more conservative outlets waited even longer to call any states, because they were hoping that the mail-in ballots would show through for Trump. But of course, in every case that I know of where mail-in ballots were counted, it either closed the gap between Biden and Trump in favor of Biden, or it made Biden's lead even greater. And that's because, Trump has always gone after mail-in ballots and told his supporters, don't vote by mail.
Right.
And we're in the middle of a pandemic, right? Like, that's
Mhm.
not a smart move if he wants people to go vote for him. What else? Yeah, so I mean, I don't think it's sketchy at all that, there were ratios as high as like 90% in favor of Biden or something with mail-in votes. If there was something else, I mean, I think I addressed the things that you brought up that you thought were suspicious. I hope I did an okay job at explaining why I don't find it like convincing for me, especially considering like it's all been looked at in the courts and the elections have been certified, including in heavily conservative places.
Mhm. No, I mean, I totally get where you're coming from. I do. You and yes, you did do a good job at explaining your point of view, and I mean, I respect that. I completely respect it. Your point of view. I'm not gonna sit here and shove it down your throat that
You're not shoving
the
anything down my
election
throat by
was.
explaining. That's why you're here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I want you to explain. I mean, my whole purpose for paying attention to politics at all is because I think it's a really important thing with a lot of negative outcomes, and then the occasional positive one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean that's why I talk about it.
It's just it's to me it's also hard to believe that the American people just from Biden's policies and stuff like that. Um,
Well, no one cares
it's
about
hard for me
who
to
Biden
believe,
is. Like that's why
which
the
is
whole thing was settled for Biden,
again
right?
like yeah, I was about to say, which again is unbelievable to me that people just literally did not look into what they were voting for. They just knew.
I think people looked into it, but once they were like, "Oh, this guy is literally saying he's going to try to undermine the election and invalidate mail-in votes." I mean, for me, I was considering either just voting for Bernie Sanders, even though obviously he wasn't going to win, or not vote at all until Trump started talking about. I mean, first there was the stuff with like people literally getting shot at in their homes by the National Guard around Portland. And that was when I was really like, holy shit, this guy's a serious fascist. And then ongoing all the way until the election, talking about how he was going to go to the Supreme Court to get mail-in votes invalidated. And I knew he was going to try to do that, which is why, even though I requested a mail-in ballot, I decided to just go vote in person instead and throw away the mail-in ballot. And I think that's why the turnout is so ridiculously high, because people either believe, Biden is part of massive deep state corruption, and I mean, in a way, he definitely does represent, I think, what is standard run-of-the-mill, unfortunately, corruption in politics. But then I compare that to Trump, and I'm like, well, I'd rather have a run-of-the-mill corrupt politician who sells access to him to like big oil and stuff, like every other politician does, versus someone who, truthfully, I think that as soon as Trump won a second term, he definitely would have started trying to work on a third. like he just continually did everything in his power to stretch the office of the president in ways that I think were very rarely beneficial to the average American. So to me, it was, okay, we can have the standard shittiness of corporatism in the United States and the working class getting shit on, or we can have someone who is starting to undo the few ways that the working class has a voice at all. Does that make sense?
I mean, that makes sense. I guess I kind of can see that, but like to me, it was a choice between someone who was helping our country and someone who would sell information that would put the American people in danger, type of thing. Now, I mean,
we can talk about the merits of Trump versus Biden.
How Trump would start working, to try to make him be able to do a third term, and if he was to do that, then I would be against that, because it's all about what this country stands for, and there's a reason why a president is not supposed to serve more than 2 terms. So even if he did try to do that, I would be against that. Because to me, it's not really a Trump versus Bernie, Biden. It's about the country, like, for real. It has nothing to do with the two
another
people.
Day we can
it's
talk
about
about
what's best for us.
We can talk about the merits of Trump versus Biden another day. And I mean, I think they're both god-awful. For very different reasons.
Right.
For Biden than you do. But, well, not in every case. But in terms of policy. But, like, assuming that the QAnon stuff was true, I could see why people would vote for Trump. So that's why I'm trying to have, a discussion and find out why certain people think that is. If there's
certain people.
If there's anything else that you wanted to add to the stuff you were saying
About you?
Yeah, in terms of credibility, or we can move past that subject if you want and talk about it another day.
I've steadily been trying to look through information to bring up points, but I have so much that I'm trying to look through, and a lot of this stuff is just random, has nothing to do with what we're talking about. So I'm trying to sort through it all. That's what I meant by when we discuss this again, I'll make sure that I have information instantly ready, and I'm not just sitting here rambling and trying to think.
I didn't prepare anything either. I didn't want to ambush you with something. With any claim, the burden of proof is on the claimant, right? Especially with something that's so significant. And conspiracy theories always tend to revolve around significant events or people.
Right.
like, I can see why people would be surprised. Like, if you thought that Trump was the greatest president that we've ever had, then of course you're going to be shocked when he loses by a margin of 8 million votes. You know, to someone like a senile old man licking an ice cream cone, right? I mean, Biden basically tripped over his own dick and beat Trump just by not being Trump.
Right.
So, I mean, I can see how that would be surprising if you thought that Trump was great. But the reason why Trump lost, I think, is obvious, is because, 80 million people decided that Trump was the worst thing for this country, not the best. And I mean, we can talk about why, people might come to different conclusions about that another day. But I'm just offering that as, a more plausible explanation for why Trump lost than there was this whole conspiracy to take him down. And I mean, obviously there were 80 million people who voted against him. Of course, there were people who tried to take him down, but there's a difference between doing legal things like that and between voter fraud on a massive scale and risk, millions of people going to prison for 5 years and ruining their own lives to help Biden, of all people.
I totally no, I totally understand what you're saying.
Have I made you
it kind of
rethink
just
some things at all?
I mean, I always think about both sides of everything.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it sounds like what you're saying is you think that what I'm saying is a bunch of different people, a bunch of different American people went in there and voted a whole bunch of different times. And you don't think that there'd be enough people willing to put themselves at risk like that. But I don't think that is the way it happened at all. I think
I'm not saying something I think that did happen. I'm saying I think there's no evidence that did happen on a massive scale. I'm sure that we'll see a few reports here and there saying, one person did it in a county or something. But it's never in an election, and there's nothing to suggest it's any different this time, that it happened on any significant level. And I haven't heard any kind of evidence that is convincing to me, even remotely. And I mean, if you're working backwards from, if you start out with the belief and you're going by, confirmation bias, here's an article saying 130,000 votes were all for Biden, then, I mean, you could be like, yeah, that looks like a conspiracy because I already think a conspiracy happened and this lines up with my belief. But that's not how we base, logic or policy making, because things of that nature are more important than just, doing whatever someone says they think happened, without any kind of fact checking, or I mean, it's already gone through all the like political hoops and gotten shot down a bunch of different ways.
Mhm. I mean, I understand. I understand both sides. Like, I could see why it's believed, like me, that it was rigged, and I can also see why it's believed that it's impossible that it couldn't have been rigged. I can see that as well. Which is why I stated, like, I'm accepting the fact that we have, a new president elect or whatever, and I wish him the best of luck and hope he does, the right thing. I'm not gonna throw a hissy fit and all that stuff. That's what I've been trying to, say this whole
Well,
time. That's what I've
if you
repeated
accept the
multiple
results,
times.
you're definitely doing better off than most people in your camp. I just like my main concern with this election was just that democracy was preserved in some sense, and that was the only reason why I voted for Biden. So that even if Biden was awful, we would at least preserve the ability to improve the state of the country.
Right.
But
And that's what I mean.
and that's why I'm so
That's what
concerned
I've been
now,
saying.
is because now we have people, a fuck ton of people saying that they're certain that fraud took place on a massive, significant scale, and that alone is undermining democracy by like changing the process just because you don't like the results.
Yeah.
And to me, that seems to be the case, as I haven't heard anything convincing.
Yeah. I mean, I totally get. I completely understand what you're saying, but I said in like our Discord chat when we talk about it and stuff like that. That I wish him the best of luck, and I hope he does good for us. My whole thing has always been about democracy and what this country stands for. I just any fraud on either side, I want it looked into, because it's not right. It's not what this country stands for. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that I 100% believe that Trump won or anything like that. I'm just saying that I don't like how this election went, because of all the little bitty instances of fraud here and there that's been proven on both sides. I don't like that, because that's not what is supposed to fucking happen. It's not supposed to be
Right.
like that. So, but I accept the results. There's nothing I can personally do to change what the hell is going on. I'm not I'm not throwing a hissy fit and crying about it. I'm accepting it, and I'm gonna have respect for our president, because he is our president. Whoever it is, I'm gonna have respect. I know a lot of people don't, but I personally do. I don't care who the president is. I'm gonna respect him, because that's who's the leader of my goddamn country. Unless he does some stupid shit for the country, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can say some dumb shit because you're an egotistical male. That's whatever. I'm more worried about what's going on for us, you know?
Right. And I mean, I think it's less important. Like, I don't care if people. I mean, I'm gonna bitch about Biden for the next as long as he's president, and probably even longer than that. Personally, I think he's going to be president for maybe 1 year, and then he resigns and Kamala Harris takes over. He might do.
I think that's going to happen too.
Yeah, and then Kamala's going to run again in 2024. And I despise her almost as much as Biden. Yeah, so I think it's less important to respect who the president is and more that you respect the democratic process.
Right.
And I think that that's not what these lawsuits are doing. And that's why, people are even refusing to be under oath. Oh, I might have to wrap this up because these AirPods are dying. One of them has crapped out already.
Okay.
And I'd have to figure out all the audio settings to hook it up again.
Yeah, don't
we
do
can
all
continue
that.
this
really need
and
to
talk more about
anyways.
it tomorrow or something, sometime in the future, whenever you want to hop on.
Yeah, for sure. Just let me know.
Yeah. Thanks for talking to me about Q and the election.
I'm sorry about all the rambling and shit. I'll have more prepared.
Oh,
the next
you're
go
good.
around.
I mean, I'm messy with this whole trying to debate it all. I'm not used to it, especially being on camera and gaming at the same time.